Picture this. It's a completely average Tuesday morning. You're standing in your kitchen, in your socks, waiting for the coffee machine to finish its slow, sputtering drip. The house is quiet, and you've got about 10 minutes before the rush of the day actually begins. You pull out your phone out of pure muscle memory. You swipe past the news, ignore a few emails, and casually tap your banking app. You aren't expecting anything bad. You just got paid last week. You figure there's a comfortable buffer sitting there, ready to carry you through the rest of the month. But when the screen loads, your stomach instantly drops. The number staring back at you is completely wrong. It's aggressively, shockingly low. You blink a few times, hoping maybe the app is just glitching or displaying the wrong account. But no, the math is real. A hot wave of anxiety flushes over you. Your heart rate ticks up as you start aggressively scrolling through the transaction history. You're looking for the culprit. You're hoping to find a stolen credit card charge, a massive fraudulent purchase, or some giant mistake made by the bank that you can easily reverse. Instead, you find something much worse. You find yourself. You see a relentless, quiet leak of tiny decisions. There's a $12 subscription you forgot to cancel. There's a $40 takeout order from a night you were just too tired to cook. There are 3 different tap-to-pay coffee runs, a random online purchase, and a recurring gym fee for a place you haven't visited in 4 months. There wasn't a single catastrophic event. No medical emergency that wiped out your savings. No unexpected transmission repair for your car. No extravagant vacation to Europe that you put on a credit card. It's just the slow, invisible bleeding of your hard-earned money. It's the death of 1,000 tiny cuts, and the most painful part is realizing you've held the knife the entire time. Every single one of those purchases felt completely justified in the moment. You remember thinking that you work hard and you deserve a treat. You remember rationalizing the takeout because you had a brutal day at the office. You remember ignoring the subscription renewal email because you promised yourself you'd watch that one show eventually. Each decision was perfectly logical on its own, but stacked together, they formed a quiet, heavy chain around your neck. You quickly close the app and shove your phone deep into your pocket. The coffee is ready, but you suddenly don't have a taste for it. You stare out the kitchen window, feeling a very specific type of exhaustion. It isn't physical tiredness. It's the heavy, sinking weight of realizing you're in a hole you dug yourself. One harmless swipe at a time. You tell yourself the same lie you always do. You promise yourself that next month will be different. You swear you'll finally sit down, make a spreadsheet, and get your life together. You'll eat rice and beans, cancel everything, and become a monk. But deep down, you know you've made that exact same promise every month for the last 3 years. You grab your keys, walk out the door, and try to push the anxiety to the back of your mind. You've got to go to work. You've got to go earn more money just to pour it right back into the exact same leaky bucket. And the most frustrating part is that you don't have any idea how to actually fix it. You realize the financial trap you're in doesn't look like the movies. There aren't collection agents banging on your front door. There are no dramatic phone calls from the bank. It's just a silent, suffocating reality where you make a decent income, but somehow always feel broke. You're treading water in a completely calm ocean, slowly getting exhausted, wondering why you can't seem to swim to shore. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. The invisible money hole is perhaps the most common financial disease of the modern working class. It is a specific type of silent panic that millions of people wake up to every single day. You aren't dealing with the dramatic ruin of a massive gambling debt. You are dealing with something far more insidious. You are dealing with the slow erosion of your financial security through completely ordinary choices. It is the overwhelming frustration of doing everything mostly right, but still feeling entirely wrong. You go to work, you pay your taxes, and you try to be a responsible adult. You don't buy luxury sports cars or take lavish trips to private islands. You are just trying to live a normal life. But somehow, that normal life has become unimaginably expensive. The cost of just existing seems to drain your accounts faster than you can fill them. And because you aren't making wildly reckless decisions, you feel a deep sense of shame. You look around at everyone else and wonder what fundamental secret to adulthood you completely missed. The truth is, they are likely in the exact same hole. The exhaustion you feel is the reality of living on a financial treadmill. You are constantly running and constantly checking your balances, just to make sure the math still works. You mentally calculate whether you can afford to go to a friend's birthday dinner. You hold your breath slightly when you swipe your card for groceries. It is a low-grade, persistent hum of anxiety that never actually leaves your body. This happens so silently because money has become entirely abstract. We no longer carry physical wallets filled with crisp paper bills. We don't feel the physical loss of handing over cash. Instead, we just double-tap the side of our phones. We let the facial recognition scan our tired eyes, and a digital checkmark appears on the screen. The transaction is completely frictionless. Your brain never actually registers the pain of losing resources. You are simply trading glowing pixels for convenience. Because of this frictionless environment, lifestyle creep disguises itself as basic survival. You get a small raise at work, and you tell yourself you finally have breathing room. But almost immediately, your baseline of normal shifts. The slightly more expensive groceries feel necessary. The convenient food delivery feels like a required tool to survive a tiring week. You don't feel like you are living larger. You just feel like you are keeping your head above water. This creates a massive emotional toll. You carry around a heavy burden of guilt because you make a real salary now. You aren't a broke college student anymore. You have a professional job, but you still feel the exact same financial terror you felt 10 years ago. You feel like an imposter in your own life. The shame makes you want to hide, and it makes you want to ignore the problem completely. That shame is exactly why acknowledging the hole is so terrifying. Opening the app and really looking at the numbers requires a level of vulnerability most of us want to avoid. It means admitting that we fell asleep at the wheel. It means confronting the reality that our past decisions have actively robbed our future selves. It is much easier to just hope that the next paycheck will magically reset the board and fix everything. But here is the hidden reality that you need to internalize right now. This is not a character flaw. You are not uniquely broken. You are simply a human being operating in an environment that is actively hostile to your financial well-being. Our brains were never designed to manage infinite streams of digital microtransactions spanning across dozens of subscription platforms. We are fighting a losing battle against systems designed to extract our wealth. To actually climb out of this hole, we have to stop pretending that sheer willpower is going to save us. We have to stop making empty promises to ourselves about being better next month. Instead, we have to look closely at the architecture of the trap itself. Because once you understand how the invisible hole is dug, you can finally build the machine to pull yourself out. To understand how deep this problem goes, we have to zoom out from your kitchen table and look at the entire country. When you look at the raw data, the illusion of individual failure completely shatters. You start to see that this invisible money hole is not a personal character defect. It is a massive, predictable, and highly profitable mathematical reality. Recent data from the Federal Reserve and financial institutions like Bankrate paint a very clear, very grim picture. Right now, over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That is more than half the country, holding their breath at the end of every month. And before you assume this is only a low-income problem, the data shows something even more shocking. Nearly half of people making over $100,000 a year report being in the exact same paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. A high salary does not magically fix the hole. We have been sold this myth that if we just get one more promotion or land one more bonus, we will suddenly feel secure. But the math proves that is simply not true. You cannot out-earn a systemic extraction machine, and that is exactly what the modern consumer economy has become. It is a highly tuned machine designed to extract your wealth in increments so small that you never feel the pinch until you are completely drained. Think about the environment you are trying to survive in. Over the last 20 years, the smartest engineers and behavioral scientists in Silicon Valley have spent billions of dollars solving one single problem. They wanted to eliminate the space between you wanting something and you buying it. They waged a war on friction. And unfortunately, for your bank account, they won that war completely. Every single app on your phone is optimized to separate you from your money before your rational brain can intervene. Your credit card information is permanently saved in your browser. Your shipping address is automatically filled in. The checkout button is a bright, inviting color right next to your thumb. You do not even have to type in a password anymore. Your phone just scans your face, and the money is gone in less than a second. Compare that to how your grandparents handled their finances. If they wanted to buy something that was not an absolute necessity, they faced an obstacle course of physical friction. They had to actually drive to a store. They had to walk down the aisles. They had to stand in a checkout line. They had to pull paper money out of a leather wallet, count it, and physically hand it to another human being. Every single step of that process gave their brain a chance to pause and ask if the purchase was really worth it. Today, that pause has been completely eradicated, but the frictionless checkout is only half of the trap. The other half is the subscription economy. A decade ago, corporate America realized that selling you a product once was a terrible business model, so they stopped selling things and started renting them. They broke down large costs into tiny recurring monthly fees and hid them in the background of your life. You do not buy software anymore, you rent it. You do not buy movies, you rent access to a platform. You rent your music, your gym equipment, your food delivery, and even your razor blades. Your bank account is essentially experiencing a continuous slow drip of $10 to $15 charges all month long. The human brain simply cannot track 15 different invisible hands reaching into your pocket on 15 different days of the month. The cognitive load is mathematically impossible to manage by memory alone. This is why you have to let go of the shame you are carrying around. You are not failing because you lack discipline or willpower. You are failing because you are a normal human being, fighting against a trillion-dollar infrastructure designed specifically to overwhelm you. The system actually relies on you being slightly tired, slightly stressed, and slightly distracted. Because a distracted, exhausted consumer is the most profitable type of consumer in the world. When you look at the statistics and the economic engineering stacked against you, the reality becomes very clear. You cannot win this game by just trying harder. You cannot beat a systemic trap with good intentions. You have to understand how this environment is exploiting your natural psychology, and then you have to build a system of your own to fight back. Here's what most people don't realize. The reason we fall into this financial hole doesn't have anything to do with our math skills. You already know how to add and subtract. The real problem is a potent mix of psychological traps, starting with something behavioral economists call the ostrich effect. We literally bury our heads in the sand to avoid looking at our money. We do this because looking at a declining bank balance isn't just slightly uncomfortable. Studies have shown that financial anxiety triggers the exact same pain pathways in your brain as physical injury. When you open that banking app and see a low number, your brain reacts as if you just touched a burning hot stove. Because humans are biologically wired to avoid pain, your brain quickly learns to stop touching the stove. You stop looking at the app. You avoid the spreadsheet. You swipe your card with a blind sort of hope, actively looking away from the terminal. You aren't being irresponsible or lazy. Your primitive brain is simply deploying a defense mechanism to protect you from acute emotional distress. But hiding from the numbers leaves you wide open to the second psychological trap, which is called mental accounting. This is a glitch in our brains where we treat money differently depending on its size or how we acquired it. The most dangerous part of mental accounting is how we categorize small purchases. We essentially treat small amounts of money as if they don't count at all. Think about how bizarre human logic can be. If your car needed an $800 repair today, you would be incredibly stressed. You would agonize over the cost, call different mechanic shops for quotes, and look closely at your budget to see how you could possibly absorb the blow. You treat a large block of money with extreme respect and caution, but you will easily bleed out that exact same $800 over 30 days in random lunches, recurring digital subscriptions, and small impulse buys at the grocery store. Because each individual transaction is only $10 or $15, it completely bypasses your brain's internal alarm system. It feels utterly harmless in the moment, but the total mathematical damage to your wealth is exactly the same. This financial leakage gets massively accelerated by our third biological weakness, which is decision fatigue. Every single morning, you wake up with a completely full battery of willpower. But every choice you make throughout the day drains that battery a little bit. By the time you finish a stressful day of working, answering emails, and navigating a busy commute, your willpower battery is entirely dead. It's usually around 6 in the evening when you are staring into your refrigerator, feeling deeply exhausted. You know you should chop the vegetables and cook the chicken you bought a few days ago. But the mental friction of cooking feels like climbing a steep mountain. Your brain is begging for the path of least resistance. This is the exact moment the frictionless economy strikes. It waits until your defenses are completely destroyed by decision fatigue. The glowing app on your phone doesn't ask you to chop vegetables, wash dishes, or do complex budget math. It just offers you an instant dopamine hit of comfort and convenience for the tiny abstract price of $30. You tap the screen because you are just too tired to fight back. To make matters worse, we all suffer from a psychological condition called present bias. We are deeply hardwired to prioritize our immediate comfort right now over the well-being of our future selves. Your brain essentially treats the future version of you like a complete stranger living in another country. Without a rigid framework in place, your tired, stressed out present self will always choose immediate relief. And you will happily steal from that future stranger to pay for it. So how do you actually fight back against a system that's engineered to drain you? You have to understand that you can't outsmart this trap using willpower alone. Willpower is an emotion, and emotions fade the second you get tired. Instead, you have to build a cold, mechanical system that works in the background of your life. You have to create an environment where doing the right thing happens automatically, and doing the wrong thing requires a massive amount of physical effort. The first step of this system is what I call the financial autopsy. It sounds a little bit morbid, but it's the exact mental framework you need to adopt right now. When a medical examiner performs an autopsy, they don't stand over the table and cry about the mistakes the person made. They don't judge. They simply look for the facts. They're just trying to find out exactly what happened using cold, hard data. That's exactly what you're going to do with your money. For the next hour, you aren't the person who made the mistakes. You're just a forensic accountant hired to look at the numbers. You have to completely detach your ego from the bank statements. If you feel a wave of shame creeping up, you have to push it down and remind yourself that you're just collecting data. The numbers aren't a reflection of your worth as a human being. They're just math. To start the autopsy, you need to pull the last 90 days of your bank and credit card statements. You don't need to go back a whole year. 90 days is enough to show you the exact pattern of your behavior. Print them out on physical paper if you can. Having something physical to hold in your hands helps ground the process and makes it feel real, rather than just more glowing numbers on a screen. Clear off your kitchen table completely. Put your phone in another room, so you can't be distracted by texts or notifications. Make yourself a cup of coffee or a glass of water. Give yourself the physical space to focus entirely on this one single task. Take a deep breath and look at the first line of the first statement. You're going to take a highlighter or a red pen and categorize every single transaction into just 2 buckets. You don't need a complicated spreadsheet with 30 different categories for entertainment, dining, and hobbies. Complicated budgets fail because they're too hard to maintain. You only need 2 columns. The first column is called fixed survival. The second column is called the bleed. Fixed survival is exactly what it sounds like. It's the absolute minimum amount of money required to keep a roof over your head and keep your heart beating. It's your rent or mortgage, your basic utility bills, essential insurance, and the raw groceries you need to cook simple meals at home. It doesn't include organic premium snacks or meal delivery kits. It's just the bare bones cost of keeping you alive and safe. Everything else goes into the bleed. This is every single subscription service, every cup of coffee bought at a cafe, every random online purchase, and every single takeout order. If it isn't required for your immediate survival, it's part of the bleed. Don't try to justify any of these purchases right now. Don't tell yourself that the gym membership is essential for your health if you haven't gone in 3 months. If you swipe your card for convenience, it gets highlighted. When you finish going through all 90 days, you're going to add up the total amount of money in the bleed column. I need to warn you right now. This number is going to shock you. It's going to be significantly higher than you thought. You might feel a sudden urge to panic or throw the papers away. But remember the rule of the autopsy. You're just looking at the data. By doing this, you're manually overriding the mental accounting glitch in your brain. You're taking all of those invisible $15 purchases and stacking them into one massive pile. You're forcing your brain to see the $800 monster instead of the 50 tiny mice. It hurts to look at, but this pain is incredibly productive. It's the sting of reality finally waking you up. You've now successfully defined the exact dimensions of your invisible hole. You know exactly how deep it goes, and more importantly, you know exactly where the dirt is coming from. You can't climb out of a hole until you stop digging, and you can't stop digging until you see the shovel in your own hands. The autopsy gives you back your vision, but seeing the hole is only the first step of the system. Knowing the math is great, but knowledge alone won't save you. When decision fatigue hits you tomorrow at 6 in the evening, now that you have the diagnostic data, you need to apply the cure. You have to build a massive wall between you and your worst habits. You have the data from the autopsy. The exact dimensions of your money hole are measured and written down on paper. Now comes the critical moment. This is the exact point where most people fail because they try to rely on motivation. They look at the terrifying number, feel a surge of guilt, and promise themselves they will just spend less from now on. But as we have already established, willpower is a fragile emotion that evaporates the second you get tired or stressed. You cannot negotiate with an exhausted brain at the end of a long workday. If you rely on consciously choosing to do the right thing, every single time you are tempted, you will eventually cave. The system you build today cannot rely on you being strong. It must rely on architecture. You have to build an environment that takes the choice away from you completely. You have to construct what I call a friction wall. A friction wall is a set of rigid, physical, and automated barriers placed directly between your impulses and your money. The engineers and designers in Silicon Valley spent billions of dollars to make spending utterly frictionless. They wanted your money to slide out of your pocket like water. Your job today is to aggressively put the friction back into your daily routine. The first brick in this wall is digital amputation. You must open your phone, your web browser, and every single one of your favorite shopping and food delivery apps. You must go into the settings and manually delete every saved credit card and debit card. You have to turn off one-click purchasing and disable facial recognition checkout. Yes, this is deeply annoying, but that annoyance is exactly the point. When your card is saved, the space between wanting a $30 meal and buying it is a single, thoughtless thumb tap. By deleting the card, you force yourself to physically stand up, walk across the room, find your physical wallet, pull out the plastic card, and manually type in 16 digits. That physical effort, that tiny window of time, gives your rational brain just enough space to wake up and ask if you actually want to do this. The second brick in the friction wall is the mandatory 72-hour quarantine. From this moment forward, anything that falls into your bleed column must wait 3 full days before you are allowed to buy it. This applies to anything that is not required for your basic physical survival. No more instant gratification for clothes, gadgets, or hobby supplies. If you see something you want online, you are allowed to put it in the digital shopping cart. But then you must close the browser tab. You write the name of the item and the current date on a physical piece of paper and stick it on your refrigerator. You are not telling yourself that you can never have it. You are simply telling your brain not right now. You are delaying the transaction to test its validity. What you will discover through this quarantine process is absolutely fascinating. You will find that 90% of the things you desperately wanted on a Tuesday lose all of their appeal by Friday. The dopamine spike naturally wears off. The emotional urgency completely vanishes. You will realize you did not actually want the physical item. You just wanted the quick, fleeting hit of chemical happiness that comes from the act of buying something. The final and most important brick in the friction wall is total financial automation. You have to remove your own hands from the steering wheel. Right now, your entire paycheck probably lands in your main checking account. It sits there on payday, looking like a giant, comfortable pile of free money. It creates a massive false sense of security that practically begs you to spend it. You need to set up a secondary, completely separate bank account. Ideally, This should be at a completely different banking institution, a place where you do not have the mobile app installed on your phone. You must set up an automatic transfer with your employer or your primary bank that triggers the exact same morning your paycheck hits. Before you even wake up and check your phone on payday, the exact amount of money you need to patch the hole, pay off your hidden debt, or fund your emergency savings is automatically siphoned away into that hidden account. You never see the money. You never feel it sitting in your primary checking. You force yourself to operate purely on the artificially reduced balance that is left behind. This is the ultimate power of the friction wall system. You stop trying to be a highly disciplined person. You stop torturing yourself with 30 different micro decisions every single day. By putting the money completely out of reach and forcing yourself to jump through hoops to spend what remains, you accept artificial scarcity. And suddenly, that silent panic begins to fade because the system is quietly doing all the heavy lifting while you sleep. Once you have the friction wall in place, something incredible happens. You stop hemorrhaging money, but simply stopping the bleeding is only half of the equation. To truly understand why this system is so vital, we have to look at the math. You need to understand the exact gravity of what you've been losing, and more importantly, what you're about to gain back. When you did your financial autopsy, you found your total monthly bleed. For most people, that number is staggering. It's usually made up of completely forgettable transactions. It's the streaming services you never watch, the impulsive food deliveries, and the random convenience store stops. Let's be incredibly conservative and say your autopsy revealed a monthly bleed of just $400. On a day-to-day basis, $400 spread out over an entire month doesn't feel like life-changing money. It feels like the normal cost of being alive in the modern world. It's essentially $13 a day. Your brain easily writes off $13 as a rounding error. You tell yourself it's just the price of a decent lunch or a quick digital rental. But money doesn't exist in a daily vacuum. It stacks up relentlessly. If you let that $400 bleed continue for a single year, you've quietly burned through $4,800. Think about how hard you have to work to save up almost $5,000. Think about the stress you feel when your car needs a repair that costs a fraction of that amount. Yet, you're willingly throwing it into a bottomless pit without a second thought. Now stretch that timeline out even further. If you don't patch the hole, that $400 monthly bleed costs you $48,000 over 10 years. That isn't monopoly money. That's a massive down payment on a house. That's a fully paid off, reliable vehicle. That's a year of living expenses completely covered in case of an emergency. You're quietly sacrificing massive life milestones for temporary, forgettable convenience. And honestly, that's the optimistic scenario. Because losing the raw cash is bad, but losing the invisible power of compounding interest is an absolute tragedy. Compounding interest is the most powerful force in personal finance. When your money makes money, and then that new money makes even more money, your wealth begins to snowball in a way that the human brain struggles to comprehend. Imagine if your friction wall successfully redirected that $400 a month. Instead of going to food delivery apps, your automated system sends it directly into a basic investment account, like an S&P 500 index fund. Historically, the stock market returns an average of around 8% a year over the long term. You don't have to be a Wall Street genius to get this return. You just have to be ruthlessly consistent. If you invest that $400 every single month and leave it completely alone, the math turns almost magical. After 10 years, you don't just have the $48,000 of raw cash you saved. Because of compounding interest, your account balance would be sitting at roughly $73,000. Your money essentially grew a completely free $25,000 just by sitting there and working for you in the quiet background of your life. Let's push the timeline out to 20 years. If you maintain that simple friction wall for 2 decades, your results completely explode. You'll have contributed $96,000 of your own money over that time, but the total balance in your investment account would be over $235,000. That's almost $250,000, generated entirely from the exact same money you used to waste on forgotten subscriptions and cold French fries. This is the perspective shift you desperately need. When you stand in the kitchen staring at an app, you aren't just debating whether a fast food meal is worth $15. You're deciding whether temporary convenience today is worth robbing your future self of hundreds of thousands of dollars. The true cost of the invisible money hole isn't just the cash you lose today. It's the absolute destruction of your future freedom. I'm not breaking down this math to make you feel worse about the past. The past is entirely gone, and you couldn't buy it back, even if you wanted to. I'm showing you this math to prove that the exact same machinery that dragged you down can be reversed, to pull you up. The tiny daily cuts almost destroyed you, but tiny daily automated investments will inevitably make you wealthy. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but you don't understand my life. You might be looking at that math and feeling a deep sense of cynicism. You might be telling yourself that you literally do not have a single spare dollar to put into an automated system. You feel like you are already cut down to the absolute bone, just trying to keep the lights on and the rent paid. That reaction is completely normal. When you are trapped inside an invisible money hole, your brain operates in a state of permanent scarcity. Scarcity mindset is a brutal psychological condition where your entire worldview narrows down to surviving the next 24 hours. When you are in that state, anyone talking about index funds, compounding interest, or 20-year timelines sounds entirely disconnected from your reality. I want to completely validate that feeling. The cost of housing, groceries, and basic transportation has skyrocketed in a way that wages simply have not matched. The economic pressure you are feeling is incredibly real, but you have to separate the macroeconomic reality from your own microeconomic behavior. You have to look honestly at where your specific dollars are actually flowing before you declare defeat. If you're like the vast majority of people, you do actually. You have the money to build a bridge out of the hole. You are just currently spending it on the bleed. Remember, the friction wall doesn't require you to go out and get a second job. It doesn't ask you to work 80 hours a week and burn yourself out completely. It simply asks you to physically capture the money that is already slipping through your fingers into the digital abyss of convenience. But even if you accept the math, you are likely facing a second, much more powerful objection. You are probably telling yourself that you will set up this entire system next month. You rationalize that right now is just a really chaotic week. At work, your kids are sick, your car is making a funny noise, and you are just too mentally exhausted to sit down with your bank statements. You promise yourself that when things finally calm down, you will build the wall. Look, here's the truth. Things are never going to calm down. The magical, stress-free week you are waiting for does not exist. Life is a permanent state of managing chaos. There will always be a mild emergency, a stressful project, or a lingering exhaustion. If you wait for the perfect emotional weather to fix your finances, you will be waiting until you are entirely broke. The invisible money hole was dug while you were distracted by the chaos of life. You cannot wait for the chaos to clear to start filling. Take it back in. You have to take action while you are still tired. You have to build the system while you are still stressed. Because the system is exactly what is going to ultimately cure the stress. You cannot rely on future motivation to save you. So I am not going to ask you to do everything today. I know that looking at 90 days of bank statements right this second might cause you to completely shut down. If the financial autopsy feels like climbing Mount Everest, we are going to bypass it for now. Instead, I'm going to give you one hyper-specific, incredibly simple micro-action to complete in the next 24 hours. Grab your phone and open the web browser you use the most. Go into the settings, find the autofill or payment methods section, and delete every single credit and debit card saved in there. Then, open your food delivery app. Go to your account and remove your payment information. Do not cancel the app. Just delete the automatic payment method. This action will take you less than 4 minutes. It requires zero math. It requires zero emotional confrontation with your past spending. You do not have to look at your bank balance, and you do not have to create a spreadsheet. You simply have to break the digital bridge between your phone and your bank account. Tomorrow, when you are exhausted from work and you instinctively open that app to order a $30 meal, the frictionless trap will be broken. The app will ask you to manually enter a 16-digit card number, an expiration date, and a security code. You will have to physically stand up, find your wallet, and type the numbers in. In that tiny, frustrating moment of physical friction, the fog will lift. Your rational brain will turn back on. You will look at the glowing screen and realize you do not actually. You want to spend that money. You will put the phone down, and you will have officially taken your first physical step out of the hole. I want you to imagine a completely different Tuesday morning, 6 months from now. You are standing in the exact same kitchen, waiting for the exact same coffee machine to finish dripping. The house is quiet, and the rush of the day has not started yet. You pull your phone out of your pocket, but this time, there is no heavy dread sitting in the pit of your stomach. You tap your banking app, not out of fear, but just out of mild curiosity. The screen loads, and the number staring back at you is completely fine. It is stable. It is exactly what you expected it to be. There is no sudden spike in your heart rate. There is no frantic scrolling to figure out where all of your hard-earned money disappeared to overnight. The low-grade hum of anxiety that used to follow you everywhere is simply gone. This massive shift in your reality did not happen because you suddenly became a perfect, highly disciplined monk. It happened because you finally stopped relying on willpower and started relying on cold, calculated architecture. You built the wall, and the wall did exactly what it was supposed to do. You have to reconceptualize how you look at this entire process. Most people refuse to build a financial system because they view it as a punishment. They view automation, delayed gratification, and artificial scarcity as a massive restriction on their freedom. They want to be able to buy whatever they want, whenever they want it, because they think that is what true freedom feels like. But the invisible money hole was never freedom. The endless subscriptions, the frictionless checkouts, and the constant bleeding of your resources were actually a very quiet, very comfortable prison. You were essentially working 40 hours a week just to fund a treadmill that kept you perfectly exhausted and perfectly broke. Building the wall was not a punishment, it was a rescue mission. When you finally stop the bleeding, you begin to understand what wealth actually is. Wealth is not about buying luxury watches, driving expensive sports cars, or taking private jets to exotic islands. Those are just marketing images, designed to keep you trapped in the consumer cycle. True wealth is much quieter, and it is infinitely more powerful. Wealth is fundamentally about options. It is the option to walk away from a toxic boss without wondering how you will pay your rent next week. It is the option to take a random Wednesday off just because you feel tired. It is the option to go to the grocery store and buy the food you actually want to eat without doing panicked mental math in the checkout line. Wealth is simply the absence of financial terror. Every single time your automated system diverts $30 away from a takeout app and pushes it into an investment account, you are not depriving yourself of a meal. You are quite literally buying back a piece of your future time. You are buying a Tuesday morning 10 years from now, where you do not have to set an alarm clock if you do not want to. You are trading the fleeting, forgettable dopamine hit of temporary convenience for the permanent, deeply rooted peace of quiet security. The math is going to work whether you participate in it or not. The compounding interest will either build a massive wall of security for you, or the compounding drain of the frictionless economy will quietly bury you alive. The choice is entirely yours, but it has to be made through action, not just intention. The system will work silently in the background of your life. The money will quietly stack up. The hole will fill in, shovel by shovel, dollar by dollar, without you even having to think about it. You just have to be brave enough to look at the math today. So take a close look at your own habits and the architecture of your daily life. What is the one specific, invisible purchase that has been quietly digging your money hole this entire year? Let me know down in the comments, because recognizing it is the first step to finally filling it in.